Everyone. Michael Cohn, product manager here at Medic. Wanted to share a couple updates with you. So yeah, we've been working on some updates to aggregate targets. So um, for those of you who haven't experienced aggregate targets too much, they basically are used from a supervision perspective. Supervisors can see a aggregate view of the targets that there's the CHWs that they manage. They can see that all in one place. Obviously, a lot of syncing needs to happen for that to for those to be up to date, but it's a really great way for supervisors to be able to see this aggregate view within their app offline. And we have the improvements that we've made for aggregate targets revolve around kind of two different things. One of which is enabling supervisors to be able to view a previous reporting period. So prior to these updates, basically the supervisor would see the aggregate targets for whatever the current month is only. And we know it's pretty typical for meetings to happen like a couple days after the end of the month. So there'll be like a review meeting with supervisors and CHWs that happens like on the 5th of the month, but it's about the previous month. So the aggregate targets previously, they basically get reset every month for the monthly targets, and obviously the all-time targets kind of just keep accumulating. But so we've added a feature that allows the supervisors to view the previous month data set. The other thing that we did that we're doing for this work is supporting aggregate targets for supervisors that manage multiple areas. So if you've been on some of the more recent Roundup calls, or if you've read the 4.9 release notes, you'll know that we have added some functionality that allows supervisors to manage multiple areas, multiple CHUs. When we did that, it did not support aggregate targets at all. And to learn more about that feature, there's a link for you, the release notes for 4.9. What we're working on right now is re-enabling aggregate targets for supervisors that manage multiple areas. So, so they'll have full functionality of for the aggregate targets. So that's kind of like an overview of the improvements that we're working on for this right now. And yeah, just wanted to give you a little demo of where we're at. They're pretty close to being done. Just go ahead and share your screen, or share my screen, not share your screen. What we're looking at right now is I'm logged in as a supervisor in this CHU, and the supervisor has these two HWs underneath them. If we just pop over to the performance tab and look at target aggregates, this is basically the how it's always looked. Nothing's really changed here. You can tap into these and you can see the contribution from each CHW within this little table here. So you've got that for whatever targets that you have configured to be aggregated, active pregnancies, under ones. So these are all very configurable for each project. What we've added is this little filter here. You can see this icon. If you tap on that, the drawer comes out and you have the ability to view last month's data. And you'll see a little breadcrumb here showing that it is last month's data. And likewise, as you pop into the detail here, it also shows it in the grid. Now, it's important to recognize that this is for both. So there's two main types of kind of widgets in targets. You have the all-time ones that just basically accumulate data over time. And then you have the monthly targets. The way this works is actually for both of those, the all-time targets and the monthly targets, it represents the data as it was at the end of that previous month, even for the all-time targets. So there's a little nuance there that's important to understand. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. But it does represent, the all-time data is represented by, when you're filtered on the previous period, it's represented by where it was at the end of the previous month. Anytime you come into this tab, it basically resets back to be this month. So the default view is always going to be this month. So that's what it looks like for a supervisor that just has one CHU. And if you are a supervisor that has multiple CHUs, so this is something that we didn't support when we released the multi-CHU supervisor feature in 4.9. We do now support aggregate targets for these users, for these supervisors. So if we pop over to the target aggregates here, actually, it's just for the comparison. So again, the darker, the incognito tab here, the one on the right, is a supervisor that manages multiple CHUs. We wanted to make sure that they could very clearly see which CHU they are looking at. So again, we added the breadcrumbs there. And it basically defaults to alphabetical, like what is the first one in the list. But they can switch between these. So, there's Katanga CHU and Mwani CHU. Again, it's going to change the breadcrumb here, and it's also going to have a visual indicator when you click into the detail. Likewise, they have the ability to view last month's data here as well. So tap in on that, and you'll see that show up in the breadcrumbs here. And just like we were seeing over here, it will show the column header here will be the last month, the name of the last month. So yeah, there are the two levels of kind of viewing the data here, either for the different CHUs or the different reporting period. And it will show the breadcrumbs, and you can see it here in the filter panel. And again, if you just tap on the tab again, it kind of resets back to the default view, which is the CHU that shows up first alphabetically and this month's data. So that's an overview of what we're working on right now. These are not in a release just yet, but they are pretty much done. We're just kind of wrapping up a few things on them with the documentation and everything, and we expect to release them pretty soon. So that's it.
My name is Lea Ngari, Senior UX Researcher at Medic. So between April and June this year, we happened to talk to some CHWs on their recent experiences with the app. And just a summary of the insights that we gathered is that most of them were having challenges, or quite a number of them reported some syncing challenges. Then we also had others who couldn't access their application because they had battery issues. Then we had others whose app was taking a bit long to load. And then we also had that some of them were using the mute feature for unintended purposes. So we had this feedback and much more, and we hope that we will have some opportunities to maybe do some coaching to some of those CHWs on some of the issues that they are facing. For those who are using the mute feature for unintended purposes, And those who are facing challenges with their batteries, we hope that those challenges will be resolved soon so that we can continue with service delivery. So that's part of the some of the insights. Then we did another activity. We also did a survey with 23 CHWs, just trying to understand again the ease of use of some of the key workflows in the app. So what they were doing is that for every workflow that we have listed here, they were rating it on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being extremely difficult and 5 being extremely easy. So we, from the results that we received, one of the workflow that they rated that maybe was a bit hard to use or difficult to use was learning new changes in their app. So we'll be following up with some of the CHWs who participated in this survey for deeper dive into this, to just hear what are some of those challenges that they are facing. So we also did quite a lot of other activities, even with supervisors. And so, like you have seen in the chat, we have our full report, our Q2 report. You can go through it, and in case you have any questions or you'd like to also collaborate with us to do some of these user research activities in the future, please feel free to reach out to me or to my colleague Zite. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ashley Jones. I'm a technical product owner based here in the United States, and I wanted to give an update about our research into hosting total cost of ownership. So there is a goal largely at MEDIC to talk about total cost of ownership, but what Allies is focused on right now, the focused working group that I'm on here, is to dive into the specifics of the hosting aspect of it. And even within that, we're going to break it up a bit so that we can give an honest and accurate number to help better inform current and future self-hosters, folks who are running the CHT in a self-hosting manner outside of the hosting services that MEDIC is paid for. So there was a big question about how to come up with an accurate number, right? You could try to model it based off of some hypotheticals, but given that MEDIC hosts a number of production CHT instances, we realized that we could do a historical, like a reverse longitudinal analysis of actual costs that it incurs to run the CHT. And the way we use this is an industry standard tool called OpenCost. What OpenCost does is it analyzes active containers in a Kubernetes cluster. Kubernetes is the current de facto way to run CHT 4x instances. And it does allow a multi-tenant solution where multiple CHT instances are running, but OpenCost allows you to silo the data just for one CHT instance. So you can see how much RAM it's using, CPU and disk, and you can see over time what the peaks might be and what the valleys might be for maximum and minimum resource uses. So this allows us to come up with some accurate data for what a single self-hosting, Ministry of Health might see for a deployment of 100 CHWs or 1,000 CHWs or 10,000 CHWs, which gives us real honest and accurate data that we can cook up and present in a more helpful manner than a graph. So while we were doing this, we realized that there is a whole breadth of data that is maybe assumed or expected to be in a hosting total cost of ownership documentation. So we realized we needed to delineate what was inside the scope and what was outside the scope. And generally speaking, we're hoping to move everything from the excluded list eventually over to what's included. So it's important to note that this is a living documentation as we, validate its helpfulness and accuracy with self-hosting partners that are already hosting. We expect to improve this documentation. So right now we're focused mainly on CPU and RAM and disk of an actual instance day to day, the monitoring, learning, and getting traffic there and traffic out and updates. But things that are not quite yet covered are like the fixed cost of running Kubernetes cluster or backups, as well as a whole myriad list of other things, which actually we're going to call out all these things in documentation so folks can be sure that the dollar amount that they're seeing is what they're expecting when they go to implement. So finally, we're hoping to get this out into documentation soon. This will be a way that folks can go ahead and read through summary level data as well as a little more detail into the topics that I've covered today. If you are interested in self-hosting and are wondering how much it's going to cost, I'd love to talk to you. If you are already self-hosting and wondering how these metrics measure up, or if you'd like to talk about how you can more closely, closely analyze what is costing more or less in your cluster, I'd also love to talk to you.
My name is Philip Mwago. I am also a technical product owner within the Ecosystem Focus Working Group. I will talk about our updates that we've been working on. So the last couple of months, we've worked on making our dashboards more reliable, and how we did this was revamp CHT sync. So as you can see on the diagram, we've reduced the services from 3 to 1. So initially, I shared a diagram in, I think, in June or in May, where we had about 3 services. That was Logstash, Redis, and Postgres. And we've removed that and compressed that into one service, which is, but when you're deploying, you only get this one service to maintain, which is Couch2PG. It's just a way of copying over data from the CouchDB database to Postgres. So the advantage here is, one, you get one service to maintain, and you also use the correct data replication protocols for replicating data. So, and also the other update there was, I think I shared this earlier, was we removed superset from the bundled containers. The reason was this is because of maintenance. However, we provide documentation on how you can actually connect your Postgres to superset so that you can be able to model your data. So once the data is in Postgres, that's the raw format. You can model it based on DBT into materialized views or whatever you'd like. And this is also consumed by any other data visualization tool, such as Superset, could be Metabase or Portfolio, depending on what you're using. So this is basically the architecture that you see there. And we have a demo on the same. So I'd like to invite Tom to the demo.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tom. I'm a software developer with Medic on the ecosystem team based in Kampala. So let me just share my screen here, and then we'll do a brief demo of CHT sync. So I have here a test instance of a CHT, which has the default maternal health app loaded onto it and a little bit of test data. I've deployed an instance of CHT sync that is pointing to this. So we can see roughly what CHT sync is doing by looking at the metrics that it's exporting in Watchdog. So as Phil mentioned, there's 2 parts of CHT sync. There is Couch2PG, which copies data from Couch to Postgres in a raw JSON format that's not very convenient for querying. And then there is DBT, which we use to transform the data from that raw SQL, that raw JSON format into proper SQL tables that are used for querying. So on this dashboard here, we have a lot of different metrics. The ones that we're most interested in are these 2 numbers at the top left, which are a summary of how up-to-date the data in Postgres is with the data in Couch. So this lower thing here, Couch2PG changes pending, shows how many changes are pending from Couch to Postgres, and DBT latency is the length of time from the last updates of DBT to when to the first row that was inserted in the actual SQL tables. So it's roughly a measure of how far behind DBT is. And we have some other stuff here that can be used to sort of drill down a little bit more into what's going on, and in case there are any issues, to quickly see why the data is not up to date or what the problem is. But if these two numbers here are zero, that means that roughly the data is up to date. So I want to take a look at the default dashboards, but before I do that, I'm going to run a script that's going to upload some more test data to this CHT instance. So right now you see there are just 8 reports all to this pregnancy danger sign form. So I'm going to run a script that adds 4,000. So simulating 4,000 people making submissions to that form. And then hopefully we'll be able to see that going through the pipeline in roughly real time. So while that's running, let's take a look at the dashboards. So this is a superset, as Phil mentioned. Superset is not a requirement anymore, but for if you're running it in, if you're running CHT sync in Kubernetes, we do provide a Helm chart that has superset bundled in together, so it all just comes as one thing. What we're looking at here is what we call the base models, which is a set of DBT models that takes the data in the CHT, which is common to all instances, and converts it to SQL tables, which are actual just regular SQL tables in the database. They have primary and foreign key constraints, and it's a normalized schema, so it's intended to look almost as though it was just a regular SQL database that you can query. So that's what comes out of the box with CHT sync. Some customization will be needed generally for getting data in custom forms. What this is showing, right, what this graph is showing here is just basically the metadata about the forms and some like simple contact information. But for anything that is specific to a particular instance, there will be some customization needed, which comes in the form of adding additional DBT models that, again, go back into that JSON structure from CouchDB and pull more of those fields out into actual columns in SQL. So yeah, what we have here is just what comes out of the box with CHT sync. We have a graph of contacts created over time and form submissions over time. This is just all test data, and you can see we have about 8 submissions to the pregnancy danger sign form here. So what I want to do now is hopefully the script is done. It is. So I want to check and see if that data, those 4,000 forms which were submitted, have actually gone through the whole pipeline and updated in real time on these dashboards. So first, let me check CHT. And yeah, there's a lot more data here. And now if we check CHT sync, we can see again that the couch changes pending is 0. So those changes from CHT have already been added to Postgres. There's 21 milliseconds of latency from DBT, which should be fine. That's not really significant. So if we now go back to the dashboards, these are from before the script ran. So if I refresh them, we should see now this form submission thing updating with those 4,000 new submissions. And they are backdated over the past month, so it should be like roughly like uniformly spread throughout the months. So let's see. And there we go. So we now have a lot more of these form submissions, just test data. But this shows that the data is moving through the pipeline from CHT to Postgres, and then from Postgres into those SQL tables. Yep, so that's it.
So we are very happy to have guests here. We have, I think, 2 minutes to go. So I'd like to ask Elizabeth from Luala maybe to say hi, and also Ellis from Combacao.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Video on. I hope you can see me. Hi, and good afternoon to you all. Nice to meet you. Looking forward to further discussions. Over.
Thank you. Ellis? Not sure if she's still on the call. Seems like she dropped off. Yeah. Other than that, thank you so much for joining the call today. It was a packed call. I hope you've learned something. Feel free to reach out to any of the presenters in case you'd like to discuss any of the topics further. And we look forward to seeing you in the next Roundup call.